Madness has long become something ordinary for Kinger. However, in the third episode of the amazing digital circus, we finally discover the reason for his bizarre behavior. It turns out that his prolonged stay in this circus hasn't had the strongest effect on his madness. The main thing that gripped us all was his wife, the Black Queen. This crazy guy obsessed with collecting insects is a true gigachad. And no, I'm not exaggerating, we clearly see how his state shifts, from madness to normalcy and back again, and now we finally have the chance to learn what's really going on with Kinger. Let's first examine Kinger's behavior in the third episode and how it changes. From the very start, Kinger behaves just as he did in previous episodes. His behavior doesn't differ from what we've already seen. He remains as mad and irrational as ever. He suddenly screams, falls into a stupor, and then screams again, spouting incoherent nonsense. In short, as always, the most stable and balanced personality. But from the middle of the third episode, strange things start happening to him. Kinger changes. He becomes rational, thoughtful, and reflective. He starts to think, yes, this is not a joke. That's exactly what happens. Kinger seems to have been replaced. He's a completely different person, and it's as if the trigger for his normal behavior was those very recordings for the quest. We listen to the recordings of Mr. Milden, the owner of the mansion where our adventure takes place. There are two levels, an easy one where we drink tea with Mrs. Mildenhall and discuss life, and a harder one where we have to face her strange husband, or rather his spirit and other inexplicable creatures. How does Kinger behave? He doesn't just become serious, but also brave. When a shotgun ends up in his hands, he already knows how to use it. He understands that the two shells must be saved for particularly important moments. When we saw Kinger with a shotgun in the trailers or teasers, we thought he was crazy and someone needed to take the gun from him. But things turned out differently. He uses the opportunity wisely. We see Kinger shift from seriousness to courage and calculated action. He immediately starts defending Pomni and even saves her. This is the same crazy character who once seemed completely unstable. One could assume that Kinger is some kind of psychopath who feels comfortable in critical situations but uneasy in calm ones. However, for a psychopath, he's too empathetic. By the end of the third episode, he supports Pomni and tells his story. We also see how his glowing from holding his breath symbolizes his inner bright side. We finally get to know him better. In the end, he returns to being the most stable and balanced personality, but everything I've mentioned above is already known. I simply describe what happened in the show. What caused Kinger's behavior? Why did he become so mad? The answer is obvious, and we are told directly it's his wife. Yes, we discussed this about a year ago. Kinger's wife became the reason for his madness. Perhaps they were already slightly unhinged from being in the circus, but the loss of a loved one played a key role. Before this, Kinger didn't act so strangely. Yes, he has memory issues, but as he mentioned himself, he still holds on to memories of his wife. Looking at the ghost, he recalls his scatterbrained wife. Listening to Mr. Milden's tape, he is reminded of his wife once again because Milden killed her. That is, he also lost her, and Kinger feels guilty about this, which is why he grieves. Darkness became a sort of trigger for Kinger. It is in these moments that he recalls the situation with his wife and her presence. It seems that in the darkness, the Black Queen could restrain herself, even though she was a monster. Although, if we remember Kaufmo, his dark room didn't help him at all. Maybe Kaufmo was holding back aggression and hatred the whole time, trying to cope with stress in his own way, telling jokes to deal with it. It seems there was no real hatred, but despite this, Kane sent her to the basement. All because she dissipated, and with such characters, there's simply nothing more to do. Kinger's love for his queen turned out to be too strong for her to completely turn into a mad monster. I have a theory that those players who dissipate can retain their sanity, perhaps for a time, maybe not. Kinger's love hasn't disappeared. Moreover, it helps him survive in the digital circus. He managed to channel this love toward others. If there are people around you who care about you, good memories can do a lot. His love is expressed in caring for others, and that's how Kinger copes with his stress. He leans on his memories of his wife, who changed him greatly. He once couldn't stand insects, but later came to love them, which became his signature, his insect collection. Who would have thought that something as simple as an insect collection could hold such profound significance? It may seem like an ordinary hobby at first glance, but it carries much deeper meaning for the characters involved. By the way, his favorite insect, unsurprisingly, is the butterfly, a symbol of transformation and freedom, which is fitting given the context. He doesn't just value these tiny creatures, though. He deeply relies on the people around him as well. Those who ended up in the circus with him are more than just companions, they've become his friends. This close bond is portrayed quite clearly, especially toward the end of the second episode, where the growing camaraderie between the characters becomes evident. Their friendship is a key element in the story and only deepens as time goes on. By the third episode, this connection has grown even stronger. Inspired by this development, I created a similar video after watching the second episode. Unlike Jax, who struggles with his surroundings, Kinger seems to have found a way to cope with the overwhelming situation. Even in the face of such a dark and oppressive atmosphere, where it feels as though there's no escape, Kinger manages to keep himself together. He proves that despite the bleakness, there are people you can rely on, and it's that trust that helps him navigate the chaos. His behavior also seems to influence Pomni. Through her interactions with him, she starts to realize that things may not be as hopeless as they first appeared. She even admits to Ragatha that she is genuinely grateful because Ragatha was there to help her from the very beginning, right from the moment she arrived. This moment of vulnerability from the main character shows her growing appreciation for the support system she has found. The second realization Pomni might come to is that all of the characters have their own unique quirks. Each of them carries their own set of flaws, and every one of them is mad in their own peculiar way. Especially Kinger, who stands out as the craziest of them all. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that this so-called madman is far more than just a caricature of insanity. Beneath the surface, he is revealed to be both highly intelligent and incredibly kind-hearted. Despite experiencing the worst event of his life, the tragic loss of someone dear to him, he has managed to retain his humanity. Yes, it's true that in most cases, Kinger will continue to be perceived as crazy by others. This label is often a knee-jerk reaction to his unpredictable behavior. However, his actions and reactions aren't necessarily the result of something like bipolar disorder, even though it might initially seem that way to an outsider. The nuances of his emotional landscape are far more complex than a simple diagnosis can convey. His mood swings, where he might be kind one moment, forgetful the next, then shift to feeling frightened and later become angry, form a kind of cyclical pattern. These fluctuations can make it difficult for those around him to fully grasp the depth of what he is experiencing. Yet through it all, Kinger doesn't attempt to suppress or hide his emotions. In fact, he wears them on his sleeve, showcasing a raw authenticity that is both refreshing and relatable. His willingness to express his feelings openly makes his character all the more compelling. His actions become more understandable when you consider the context of his struggles. Kinger is grappling with his madness in a unique and personal way, navigating the labyrinth of his mind while trying to find a semblance of normalcy. Isn't that the mark of a true Giga Chad? I'd even go so far as to call him a father figure to some of the others, and that's how it turns out in the end. So, what are your thoughts, dear viewers? How do you feel about this intriguing character development? Write about it in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, put the ties, and also go to the channel and watch the past videos. For us, it is very important. Maybe you will learn something new and interesting for yourself.